No. By the end of the year, we will also have such a weapon as it was called Resh.
Speechwriter, yes.
And the first positions will be, we have already determined they are being built, these areas are being developed. We will get such weapons too. By the way, they can carry a nuclear warhead.
Could you elaborate a bit more about that call from Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin when he either confronted you with a fait accompli or informed you that this is what happened, that troops moved south toward Kiev from the territory of Belarus?
You know, it wasn't just from the territory of Belarus.
Yes, but not only.
The clashes actually started a bit earlier in Donbass when they were forced to evacuate civilians. Well, you know this better than I do. It seems you were there. That's exactly how it started, a day before. Why? I'm saying this off the cuff, just recalling from memory. I think it was a day or two before we met with him, with Putin, somewhere near Moscow, I believe. We were flying together in a helicopter, a phone call in the helicopter. He picks up the secure line, and someone from the Russian side reports to him that the Ukrainians are shooting or have started shooting. What should we do? Civilians, you know, and so on. He immediately says to me, listen, this and that is happening in Donbass. There are civilians there. I say, in this case, they need to be evacuated because this is already a part of Donbass where Russian troops were present. I say, these are basically your people now. You need to evacuate them, save the civilian population. You think so? I say, yes, that's my opinion. It's your responsibility now. He says, we need to protect the people, put them on buses and evacuate them. This was a day or a day and a half before, as you say, Russia's invasion across our border.
I remember evacuation by bus.
Yes, I was with him in the Moscow region. We talked about how the West was behaving very aggressively and that anything could happen. I was worried about my rear positions and so on. And I said, you don't need to worry about that. For some reason, he was afraid that the West might stab him in the back. Well, he didn't say it directly, but you know, if something suddenly happened in Ukraine, in Donbass and so on, they could strike from behind. I said, you really don't need to worry about that. That's my area of responsibility. I won't allow anyone to shoot Russians in the back. I said this openly and publicly. I'm a person, a seriously military person, truly military. I became an officer in the army, and I understand what an operation is. Well, it's basically war. No one, except for a few people, just a handful, could be let in on these plans. So, as for not being informed or anything like that, I took it calmly. All the more so, this wasn't a joint operation. If the general staffs had been working together on some kind of joint operation, that would be a different story. But take the exercises now. People from our Belarusian general staff and the Russian one sit together, working through all these drills as planned by the presidents. This is already the 5th delegation from the United States of America. By the way, they were the initiators. To his credit, the main role was played and is probably still played by Smith.
Yeah, okay.
Chris, they refer to Trump all the time, but I don't think Trump is that deeply involved in this issue. But he knows about the topic. These people close to him, adults besides Smith, told me about this. This was the 5th visit, and whether it would be made public or not depended solely on the Americans. We didn't insist in any way. Did you talk? We talked. Moreover, we didn't set any goals for ourselves. We made a suggestion. What is America? Well, I don't need to tell you what America is. It's the leader in our world. Yes, weakened. Yes, sometimes you do some crazy things over there for reasons no one understands. Sometimes the president there makes one statement in the morning and by the evening acts completely differently. There's plenty of everything. But America is still America. Well, if they suggest a conversation, fine. We know very well the policy that the State Department under Joe Biden and even under Trump has pursued and is pursuing toward Belarus. And suddenly, through our people who work in New York at the UN, who remain at the embassy, we receive information that the Americans would like to talk, to discuss some regional issues, global problems. They would like to talk about this. By all means, we are open to that. We didn't believe, and I still don't believe, that the Americans will approach the main issues seriously, lifting sanctions and normalizing relations. We don't have any relations at all. You even withdrew your ambassador from here.
From your point of view, it would be good, of course, if the sanctions were lifted and economic restrictions were eased.
Of course, that would be normal.
Pressure?
This would be a major step toward normalizing our relations since the first time Soros visited me in 94 or 95. He came to me and made an offer, but I was honest with him.
What did he offer? To become part of the Western world, or what?
Yes, to break away from Russia. I told him honestly what I thought of his policy. He sat there, listened to me, studied me. He was still very young then, not even 40 yet. I said, so, George, forgive me, but I won't pursue this policy. I won't do this. So this is probably our last meeting. I made it clear that we would not cooperate. And since then, I have stuck to that position. And secondly, discussing third parties and states that are not present here is out of the question. That's considered inappropriate in diplomatic practice.
So you don't discuss Russia with the Americans?
Oh no, we do talk about Russia, about Putin, about the war and so on. But fundamentally and conceptually, we do not make any agreements with the Americans behind Russia's back. Sometimes they ask me, could you pass this on to Vladimir Vladimirovich? I say, guys, you just met with him recently. Can't you tell him yourselves? Yes, but we'd like you to pass it on. All right, I say, fine, I'll pass this, this, and this on. And I always did it honestly. We would call each other every other day, every 2 days, maybe the next day. And I would tell him, or when we met in person, Vladimir Vladimirovich, here's this, 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 and this. So how should we proceed? Maybe we need to respond to them through this channel and so on. He always answered these questions. So we proposed an air ceasefire, as they called it, not to carry out any strikes from either side whatsoever.
But the strikes only intensified.
Yes. And I said, well, from my point of view, that's reasonable. Russia doesn't need these strikes on cities and strategic aircraft and so on. Ukraine even less so, because these are massive strikes with missiles and so on. It's not like what the Ukrainians are doing with drones.
Well then, if Putin doesn't need this, why are there strikes on civilians?
They tell me, we tried to come to such an agreement with him, but he doesn't want to. I say, that can't be true. I give an example and then a couple more questions. This is something I'm ready to discuss with Vladimir Vladimirovich. I call him and say, Vladimir Vladimirovich, here's the problem, they're raising the issue. He tells me in a friendly, brotherly way, what are you talking about? Yes, we are for it, we are not against it, but Ukraine should not strike from its side.
Yes.
I thought so. Well, this proposal is clearly beneficial to Russia. When I started to figure it out, yes, indeed.
And you passed it on?
Yes, I passed everything on. I say, but you don't want this. What do you mean we don't want it? I say, well, are you speaking for Ukraine now? Then you should warn the Ukrainian leadership not to bomb Russia. Russia won't carry out airstrikes on Ukraine. Putin he's not bloodthirsty. No matter how you describe him over there in America, and you know it yourself, he's not bloodthirsty. He knows what family is, what children are, and so on, and to just pound, to strike at civilians like that, well, listen, it's war. There are information and psychological operations, which you taught the Ukrainians. They're good at that. I know how Bucha was staged, so let's not talk about Putin bombing civilians. Let's stop hitting, as they say, peaceful cities with missiles and drones. And what, does Zelensky really know where a drone will fly and so on? They fly into our territory now from one side, now from another. We've already recorded about 50 of them. Even one drone passed through Belarusian territory and crashed somewhere near or on the territory of Lithuania or Latvia. They howled and shouted, and we gave them access. Go ahead, check for yourselves, see if there are any Belarusians there or not. So to say that Russia is striking peaceful cities and peaceful civilians while the Ukrainians are so innocent wearing white gloves, well, that's just not fair. I have a direct, very close, good brotherly relationship with President Putin. You are, of course, aware of this.
Well, do you ever get the sense that he's concerned that maybe he advises you, for example, not to interact so actively with the Americans?
That hasn't happened, but knowing Vladimir Vladimirovich's character, I know he's absolutely sober-minded in assessing the situation. He may have some doubts, but he never told me about it. Never. But I admit that maybe.
Isn't it dangerous for you?
No. I don't see any danger yet. It's unpleasant, of course, to be honest, if someone in Russia thinks and writes this way. Well, I'm saying there are different people But the main trend is full support of our position and full mutual understanding. There is nothing to reproach us for.
Yes, indeed.
Well, try to reproach me for something from Russia's position.
Yes.
We have never denied that we are co-aggressors with Russia. Yes, well, co-aggressors. Is it convenient for you in America to consider us co-aggressors? Well, fine. Putin, Lukashenko, two aggressors. Is that convenient for you? Well, keep thinking that way then.
Do you deny it or do you not deny it?
I don't even think about it at all. I just turn it into a joke. Well, co-aggressors. Well, if I deny it, do you really think America will change its position? No. And besides, nothing will change in that regard, so I don't stress about it as young people say.